What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 6 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show. I'm Jared, back again with Ian and Chris. Thank you guys for continuing to watch our videos, comment, liking our Facebook page, tweeting at us. You guys are awesome. Let's get into it, man. We have a pretty awesome show in store for you guys this week. Um, we're going to continue on what we did last week. Give you our best and worst of the weekend. Chris, I'll let you lead this one off.
Okay, so best of the weekend. The number one thing that stood out in my mind, again, this had something to do with me personally because it involved my fantasy team, but I loved watching those Miami Dolphins go crazy on the hapless Houston Texans, and specifically Lamar Miller. 175 rushing yards, 75 receiving yards, 3 total touchdowns. The guy was a beast. I'm going to go with Lamar Miller for my best of the weekend. Worst of the weekend? What is going on in Miami with college football and those Hurricanes? They get blown out at home against Clemson, 59-0, worst loss in their history, believe it or not. So Al Golden gets canned. The AD came out and said that the two losses that stuck out to him the most were Cincinnati and Clemson. So goodbye, Al Golden, and good luck, Miami, finding someone that can bring that team to the level that they think it should be at. The fans are delirious. Miami Hurricane football, worst of the weekend.
Ian?
My best of the weekend is out in SoCal. The USC Trojans knocking off the number 3 undefeated Utes of Utah. Big win for that Trojans team with the new coach, the interim coach, trying to figure out where they're going to go from here on out. But that was a huge win for them. My worst of the week would have to be just that Texans offense.
Terrible.
I mean, it was brutal. I think the Dolphins were up 35-0 before they had gained a yard. So definitely the worst of the week. Moving forward, I don't see the Texans figuring it out. So also worst of the week, Ryan Mallett missing the flight, getting cut, hilarious.
That's crazy. We'll touch more on Ryan Mount later because I do got some stuff to say about him. My best of the weekend was JT Barrett and this Ohio State offense putting JT in over Cardell Jones. JT came in and dominated Rutgers, winning the game 49-7. He had 5 total touchdowns, and the offense looked very fluid under him. My second best of the weekend is the Columbus Crew. They locked up the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs, so they will get a first-round bye. They beat DC United 5-0. So anyone who says soccer is boring, there's no goals. 5 goals was pretty awesome and exciting. So congrats to the Crew. My worst of the weekend, I think we all can agree on this one. The Minnesota Timberwolves head coach Flip Saunders, he passed away after his short battle with cancer. He was only 6 years old. Great coach, well respected around the league. Everyone that he kind of came in touch with was, very impacted by that. So basketball lost a great coach, a great mentor, and it's very sad to see the passing of Flip Saunders. So thoughts and prayers from our small show out to his family and the NBA family for sure. Let's move on to the Bengals. Mine and Chris's Cincinnati Bengals. They had a bye week last week, but still some stuff to talk about. We do have quite a few questions, so thank you to everyone who sent in questions for us. There's a whole bunch to choose from here. So let's start with Ken Rice. Ken asked, do you think the Bengals will sweep the division this year? Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's certainly not impossible. It has been done. It's been done before recently. They have a long way to go, though. They still have to play Cleveland. They still have to play another Baltimore game, and they have 2 games against Pittsburgh. Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think it will happen? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I'm just going to say no based on the fact that you got to win 5 more games, and I know they got a tough one out of the way at Baltimore. They've got another tough one coming up at Pittsburgh. I'm going to go ahead and say they take the division 5-1, but I don't see a 6-0.
I agree with you. I don't think that they will sweep their division. In the perfect world, yes, they will, but football, it's such a long season. I mean, we're just looking ahead to the next game. Pittsburgh's going to be a very, very tough game for the Bengals. So I don't think they sweep Kim. That's a great question, but I hope that'd be awesome. But I do not think they sweep this year. Ian?
I'm in the same camp as you guys. I think it's doable. It's going to be hard to pull that off with the remaining games they have left, and football, it comes down to being healthy. The healthiest team at the end of the year is the victors, and I think they'll eventually drop one to a division foe. Can't say who it is, but hopefully it's those Brownies up north, but wait and see. But I think they'll drop at least one, so I'm going with that camp of 5-1, like Chris said.
Okay, fair enough. Another question we have from Jeff Walker. He's of the band Mavis Purley. So, Jeff, thank you for your question. Jeff writes, what will stop the Bengals from making the playoffs this year? Ian, I'm going to let you lead this one off.
Um, I don't think I think an absolute collapse would prevent them from making the playoffs this year. As far as succeeding in the playoffs, they just got to stay healthy. Like I said in the last question, it all comes down to having your guys ready to go and ready to play. I think this is probably Marvin's best team he's had. They're the most complete team he's had. I think that a lot of teams looking at the Bengals are worried about them moving forward, and I don't think anybody wants to meet up with them right now. I know they haven't had success in the playoffs, but you know, every year's a new year, and like I said, I think all it takes is one win in the playoffs to get this team going, and it's going to be game over. So I think it would take an absolute collapse for them not to make the playoffs, but for them to get into the playoffs, for them to succeed in the playoffs, they're just going to have to play their game, and they're going to have to stay healthy.
Chris?
Yeah, basically, I want to piggyback on what Ian was saying here. So, what could keep the Bengals out of the playoffs? Short of a zombie apocalypse, I don't know. I don't think anything will. I mean, you're talking about a team that's 6-0. They can conceivably go 4-6 the rest of the way and still win the division. You're talking about a division with a Baltimore team that's 1-6. That was a lot of people's preseason pick to win the division or at least challenge Cincinnati and Pittsburgh for that spot. It's really tough to go 6-0 and lose the division. I don't want to jinx anything about this team, but I just don't see it happening. I'm giving them probably a 90% chance to wrap it up. If they win at Pittsburgh, I'm going to bump it up to a 95% chance. But odds are definitely in their favor.
I think the only thing that'll stop them is injuries. If you lose a big player, I don't want to mention names and mush or jinx anyone, but injuries themselves, if they get too big ahead, I don't know. Last year, when I feel like when the NFL or ESPN released the power rankings and the Bengals were number one, from then on it went downhill. They got smoked by the Patriots that next game. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. Statistically, I mean, it would be the odds of it are insane if they don't make the playoffs. It would probably be that would be the most historical thing that the franchise has ever done if they don't make the playoffs. So I don't know, injuries, but hopefully we don't have to deal with that. But Jeff, thank you so much for the question, man. Really do appreciate it. We have a couple other Bengals questions as well. Jake Parrish asks, okay, Jake says, plus minus, what is our opinion? Plus minus 75% of the fans, of that Bengals fans will overreact if the Bengals suffer their first loss against Pittsburgh on Sunday. What do you guys think about this one? How do you think the fans will react? Plus minus 75.
Well, I think that's pretty much dead on. I would like to think that our fan base has matured and grown up a little bit to know that losing one game isn't going to kill your season. 75%, do I think over or under 75% of the fan base will overreact? I actually think under. I think maybe we're at a point now where going to the playoffs 4 straight years, a loss to Pittsburgh isn't as much of a death knell as it used to be. I'd like to think they have enough built-up momentum and good faith on a 6-0 start to where the fan base isn't going to overreact and go crazy about firing Marvin Lewis or benching Andy Dalton or bringing out A.J. McCarron because Dalton made a bad decision. He's had such a fantastic start. All these players have built up enough good faith in the fan base. I'm going to give them credit and go under 75%.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. it's the whole city of Cincinnati, and I'm a Reds fan, so I experience it with the Reds ball club. But there's this sense of entitlement that we talked about earlier in past shows. Just there's a lot of overreaction when one bad thing happens, and if the Bengals lose Sunday, they still have control of the division. They still have a healthy lead on the division. A loss doesn't hurt them. But the way the sport world is, and the way that Cincinnati is, it's always been, what have you done for me lately? And if the Bengals lose on Sunday, Monday morning, there's going to be a lot of people falling off that bandwagon for some reason, which I'll never understand, but that's just the way it is, it seems, in Cincinnati.
I agree with you, Ian. I would say it's going to be 99.9% Bengals fans overreacting. That 0.1% will be us three not overreacting if something were to happen. 100% the media will overreact. The Bengals will probably drop if they were to lose to the Steelers. The Bengals will drop. I think ESPN has them third right now. I guarantee they drop out of the top 10. ESPN, the media, everyone is waiting for Andy Dalton and the Bengals to mess up. For some reason, they love to rag on the Bengals and Andy Dalton. So I think
Absolutely.
I think 100% the media will overreact and be like, same old Bengals. This is the team we told you about. Same old Bengals. They can't win in the big game when it matters. So whatever. I'm sick of it. I think this Bengals team is legit. They're very good. I don't even think like that, Jake, but I could see everyone overreacting if big if it were to happen. So, Jake, thanks for the question, man. We appreciate your constant participation. You're awesome, man. So thank you. Jeremy Green writes, what is the biggest focal point defensively this weekend at Pittsburgh? Is it shutting down Le'Veon Bell or the wide receiver duo of Antonio Brown and Martavius Bryant? What do you guys think about this one? E, you want to go first?
I think it's just keeping everything in front of them. Uh, I personally, I don't think the Steelers stand a chance. I really don't. Even with Roethlisberger coming back, I just don't think. I think the Bengals are too good. It's going to have to be an injury. It's going to have to be them completely collapsing on defense. As long as they keep everything in front of them, I think they'll be all right. Run defense has looked okay this year so far. Pass defense has looked okay. Maybe it's because I'm not a Bengals fan. I don't analyze it too much, but I don't think they should have a problem with Pittsburgh, so I'm not too worried about that.
Chris?
For me, the number one focus for these last 2 weeks in practice should have been a pass rush. Get Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap in the backfield ASAP. I think seeing the Bengals play the Steelers numerous times over the past 10 years since Roethlisberger's been quarterback, you give him any more than 3 seconds, and you're looking at a 40, 50, sometimes 60-yard play. The guy is just a tree trunk that you just bounce off of, and you have to find a way to get in his face fast. Now, I know he's been injured. I know his knee is bad. I'm not fooled. I still see the same impossible to tackle, dragging you through the sludge and beating you deep. So you have to get in his grill. You have to get into the backfield. I think that's number one. And then number two, you got to contain Le'Veon Bell. I know he's missed the first 2 games, but their offense has just been powered by him so far this year. So I think Roethlisberger and Bell, and you got this thing in the bag.
I don't think the Bengals struggle. I mean, it's going to be a good game. It's an AFC North game. Steelers are always good. The Bengals are 2-6 against the Steelers since 2011, so that's obviously not good. They've statistically had our number. They've been one of the best franchises in the NFL historically. So Ben Roethlisberger has been a killer of the Bengals. I mean, how many times have we watched that guy 100%? He drops back and he's got 3 linemen bearing down on him, and somehow he gets out of it, and then throws a bomb to a wide open receiver to score a touchdown. So he's been a thorn in the Bengals side. I mean, he's coming back. His knee's probably fine now. I mean, he seems like he wanted to play last week. I think they knew they had a big game against the Bengals. They wanted to save him. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough game. It's like you said, Chris. We got to get a pass rush on them. Our pass rush has been pretty good so far. Our tackling needs to get better. That's one thing I could see. Like if Antonio Brown gets loose or Le'Veon Bell gets loose, you got to tackle those guys. You can't let them get extra yards. Le'Veon Bell has absolutely scorched the Bengals in the past. He's played 3 times against them. He's averaging 147.3 yards per game, and he's got 4 touchdowns in those past 3 games. So he's absolutely scorching the Bengals. We've got to keep him in front of us, take him out of the game. Antonio Brown is the best in the league. I think Le'Veon Bell, I've said that multiple times, he's the best running back in the league. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game, but I think the Bengals' defense and offense is – I think our offense is better than their defense, and our defense can play with their offense. So I don't know. It's going to be a good game, though. It's going to be a good game. So thank you, Jeremy, for that question, man. I do appreciate it. We got a couple other questions, but let's move on first. I'll get to those here in a little bit. So thank you to all you guys who have asked questions. That's awesome. Let's talk about your Browns, Ian. Tough loss. Rams kind of put it to them. What are your thoughts on that, man?
They didn't kind of put it to them. They let him have it.
Well, I was being generous. I'm sorry.
I appreciate it. No, I kind of expected the game to be a lot like this. Moving from grass to turf, there's adjustments that have to be made, and they weren't made. Now, I'm not going to blame everything on the turf because that's just not viable. But I wrote about it in the Browns article up on our blog. I think the Browns played right into the Rams' defensive plan. They failed to do much on first down. It dug them a hole on second and third down. And by that time, they're facing a lot of second and third and longs, and it just allows St. Louis to draw back in a lot of cover, too, and keep everything in front of them. And, got a bad case of fumbleitis Sunday. McCown loses the ball twice. Taylor Gabriel catches a pass, loses it. Travis Benjamin loses a ball. You can't win a game when you're giving the other team the ball 4 times on that. Just those unforced errors. But, fumbles aside, McCown still played well. They could not establish a deep game. They could not establish, a deep pass, a deep ball. The Rams knocked Benjamin out of the game like that. They covered all those deep passes. They did well, and it seems like for about the 5th straight season, I'm noticing this and saying this, but the Browns could not get a run game established. I think that's the 18th straight game they've failed to have a running back run for 100 yards or more. That's terrible if you're an NFL team. You got to have somebody that can get a game going for you on the ground. That opens up so much more on the short passes. But, I mean, there's a few positives out of it. There's a couple players that are still playing well. Like I said, McCown had a decent day before he left due to injury. Hurt his shoulder. He's listed as day-to-day, but Gary Barnidge, another beast day, only 6 catches, but over 100 yards again for the 3rd consecutive week. He's the first Browns tight end since Kellen Winslow to do that back in 2007. Travis Coons, our rookie kicker. I mean, I know he's just a kicker, but he's consistent. He gets us a couple of field goals. Run defense looked terrible. Pass defense was okay. Going up against Nick Foles, not much to expect there. It's not like you're going up against, Phillip Rivers or Tom Brady, but, Foles was able to do some things in the air, not much. But, I mean, that game was decided on the ground, and it was all about Todd Gurley all afternoon. So it was definitely a tough one to swallow. I expected it, but it hurt bad watching it. It was definitely, it got you on the chin, and it knocked you down.
Chris, did you get a chance to watch that game?
I did. I did see a little bit of it, and from an outsider's perspective, I did kind of want to study up on the Brownies a bit here. I usually only get a chance to see them when they're playing the Bengals, but in this case, the game kind of went back and forth with televised control. St. Louis Rams are a team that they want to lull you to sleep with ball control and defense. They've been that way for the past 5-6 years, as long as I can remember. They're not a flashy team, but they win with ball control and defense, and that's exactly what they did to Cleveland. For some reason, Josh McCown is a talented quarterback. I think he has control of the game, He had an uncharacteristic day where he turned the ball over, and that's just killer in any offense, but especially an offense that for some reason played such a conservative game, in my opinion. I didn't see a lot of attempts for big chunk yardage plays, too many screens, too many 2, 3 yard runs and punts. It was just it was kind of a mess of a game. You'd like to see maybe a little more urgency. I don't know what the fans in Cleveland are thinking about if they really want someone that's just going to go in there and just gunsling the ball all over the field, but it didn't look like an offense that was ready or willing to do that.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of weird. You know, I like Chris said, I don't really get to watch the Browns that much. They're usually playing at the same time the Bengals are. So the only time I get to watch them is if they're playing the Bengals or if they're a primetime game or if the Bengals are on a bye. So I did get a chance to watch them. I actually watched the whole game. It was a pretty boring game. Obviously, I was rooting for the Browns, just so I could have Ian have something happy to talk about for once. But yeah, I mean, McCown didn't look bad. I know he gets on Twitter and on Facebook. A lot of Browns fans will actually kind of rip him. I mean, he went 26 of 32, 270 yards. He didn't look too bad. Like you said, Gary Barnidge, he's a beast. That guy is definitely he's going to be a fantasy sleeper in the next year's draft for sure. But what shocked me with the Browns is that how bad that defense is. I know you talked about it, and I haven't really. I mean, I've seen the highlights and stuff. I haven't really watched them. Their defense is not good. They're old on defense too. I know their two best players, Carlos Dansby and Traymon Williams. Dansby's going to be 34 in November, and Traymon Williams is 32. So they're getting up there in age. They've done a good job leading that team in the locker room, so I've heard. But they're going to need to rebuild, man. That offensive line is not good. They can't establish a run game, and if you can't establish a run game, then teams just drop players back and cover the pass. So the Browns, they didn't look good, man. I've said over and over, I think you guys have the worst set of skills players in the NFL. I mean, Benjamin's a beast. Duke could be good if he had a line or holes to run through. And I said before this, the Browns' run defense is pretty awful. I know they're using that system where the linebackers guess where to plug up holes. The D linemen will line up and go whichever way the offensive linemen are going, and the linebackers are left guessing instead of actually having set plays that they run, which is kind of weird. I was reading up about that, and it's worked with the Jets and teams in the past, but it is definitely not working for the Browns because Gurley absolutely ripped you guys 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that's the 5th time this year you guys have given up over 100 yards to running backs. So not good from the Browns. Things got to get better. You guys got to build through the draft, man. You have to.
Well, like you said, you got to, with that defense, that type of defense they're wanting to run that's had success in other places, you got to have the right personnel for that, and we don't. I mean, drafting Danny Shelton in the first round, I thought that was a solid pick. That's who I wanted in the first round with that pick. I think he's somebody that can clog up holes on the defensive end and, help stop a run game from happening. But you got to have other players out there to do that. They're definitely going to have to build through the draft. I mean, you've seen with Dansby and you've seen with Dante Whitner, there are some guys that are willing to come to Cleveland because of the fan base. But these guys are coming later in their careers. They're coming as they're older. They're aged. They've already kind of been in their prime. And I'm not taking anything away from Whitner or Dansby because they both have played well since coming over. But you've got to build in the draft because Cleveland is not a destination team that you're going to bring a big free agent in.
Right.
So you're going to have to get better scouting. You're going to have to get better drafting. You've got to quit wasting a pick on a quarterback every season. We got to take somebody and stick with them. Unfortunately, we're going to need to take a quarterback this year in the draft, not in the first round. There's other quarterbacks out there. We don't have to waste the first-round pick. But there's a lot of stuff that needs done. That offensive line, Joe Thomas is a beast. Alex Mack is solid. Batonio is solid. Antonio was a hidden gem when we drafted him last season, and turned out to be really well, or worked really well for us. But got to get rid of the other guys up there, so we can establish that run game like you're talking about. And I think Duke Johnson could be a solid NFL running back if he had a line in front of him that could create holes. And, Duke has done well coming out of the backfield as a wide receiver, but you didn't draft him to be a wide receiver. You drafted him to be a running back. But they definitely need to get younger. They definitely need to get younger on the defensive side of the ball. And I think once you start building those big uglies up, you're going to start getting some skill set players, and maybe through free agency or maybe through later picks in the draft. But
exactly, and like from what I saw, the offensive line got called for a lot of holding. I know they can call holding on every play. Joe Thomas got called a couple times that called back big plays.
yeah.
I mean, it just stupid mistakes, turnovers. You don't win when you turn over the ball, and the team scores off those turnovers. Just terrible. They just looked out of whack, out of sorts, man. Also, the defense has regressed so bad. Gibson, Hayden, Whitner were all Pro Bowlers last year, and Paul Kruger had 11 sacks. And where are they at this year? They're all playing. They're not playing well. So
they're on the side of milk cartons in Cleveland.
Yep, exactly. But
And
yeah.
in my opinion, you got to win games, and you got to build a team in the trenches on offense and defense, on the line, like Ian said, with the big uglies. And that was a huge weakness that I saw. But now that we're going back in the game and reflecting a little bit, was just that middle of that defensive line. I mean, straight up the middle. They didn't get any pressure. They didn't get any penetration or any kind of a slowdown. But I mean, are they really going to have some consistency there? I think they have to have a consistency with the head coach that can actually, maybe give him some time to build or create a philosophy there. I don't know when the last coach has been there longer than 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a revolving door for sure. But there's always next week. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one this coming week, as you'll see with our picks. Speaking of NFL picks, let's go ahead and get into that now. Ian, do you want to recap our picks from last week?
Do this. Week 7, Jared, you and I finished the week 10-4, notching our 4th weekly victory. Chris, still sitting with 2 weekly wins as you finish this past week with an 8-6 record.
That Browns jersey is going to look great on you, Chris.
It's all right. Baby steps. Better than 4-10, that's for sure.
That's right. What is our overall totals?
That is an excellent question that I do not have that stat on me.
All right, we'll add that up if you can. We'll get into our weekly picks this week. Week 8 NFL picks. First game, Thursday Night Football. The Miami Dolphins, the red-hot Miami Dolphins, 2-game win streak, are on the road taking on the New England Patriots in Foxborough. Chris, who do you have in this one?
I like the Dolphins a lot. I think they showed a lot of promise last week. Their coach is finally trying to get himself out of that interim title. But no one beats New England in prime time. The Dolphins have done it before. They shocked the world a few times on Monday Night Football. And while I think they'll put up a fight, I just think Tom Brady's too much for him. I'm going Patriots.
Ian?
While you guys were talking about the Bengals earlier, I reached into the fridge, grabbed that Dolphins Kool-Aid. The Dolphins knock off the Patriots this week, knock them out of the unbeatens. I'm starting to believe in this Dolphins team a little bit more and more each week.
So you're taking the Dolphins this week?
I'm taking the Dolphins.
Already throwing curveballs. First pick. I love Dan Campbell. I think he is a badass. Apparently he has those guys wearing black jerseys in practice and stuff because he just loves Metallica and he's blaring Metallica. I also heard a story about him. They said he actually ruptured his spleen or something in a football game, flew home on the team plane and didn't tell anybody because he didn't want to seem like a pussy, and drove himself to the hospital. They're like, you could have died, man. But that guy's awesome. He's got them playing well. It looked great last week. However, going into Foxborough does not bode well for teams on Thursday night. Tom Brady has never lost on Thursday Night Football. In 13 years, he is 8-0. I am sticking with the Patriots in this one to stay undefeated. Game 2, we got Mine and Chris's Cincinnati Bengals on the road taking on the Steelers. Now, we do have another question that I'm going to actually get into. This is James Bishop asked, what are our predictions for this game? So, James, you're about to get that right now. Chris, who do you have in this one?
Well, this was a battle of head versus heart. See, my heart is in with the Stripes. I love everything about this Bengals team. I don't see a weakness on this team. I just see a team that's on a mission. I see a team that is looking for that 7-0 start for the first time in franchise history. And then my head kicks in and says, here you go again, believing. You know that they're 2-6 against the Steelers the last 8 games. But I'm going to go ahead and go Cincinnati. I think they're very slight road favorites, which hasn't happened in the Marvin Lewis era at Pittsburgh. I know they've had a bye week. Also, doesn't bode well for Marvin Lewis historically, but history is useless in sports, in my opinion. It's all about now, and I think now's the time they take it to Pittsburgh.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm going Bengals by 2 scores. I don't think the Steelers can keep up with them. I know the Steelers have had success with them in the past, but I think this is a whole different Bengals team. Like I said before, I think this is Marvin's strongest Bengals team. I just don't think it's going to be a close one, even though it's at Pittsburgh. I like the Bengals by 2 scores in this one.
Now, if you watch our past shows, you've heard me say whenever I get to the Bengals game, I will pick the Bengals every week this year. I think this is the best team they've had ever. They're very good. I would pick them against the 85 Bears every week if that's who they were playing. The Bengals are, like I said earlier, 2-6 since 2011 against the Steelers. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a tough, grinded out game. However, Cincinnati and Andy Dalton are 21-3-1 when they play at 1 p.m. since 2013. So that means if every game was at 1 p.m., Andy Dalton would be the league's MVP for the past 4 years. I'm taking the Bengals. This game's at 1 p.m. I'm taking the Bengals to stay undefeated in this one. Lions on the road taking on the Chiefs is the next game. Chiefs, they're playing pretty well without Jamal Charles. Who do you guys have in this one? Chris?
I'll go ahead and start it off here. Arrowhead Stadium is a tough place to win, and Detroit's not very good at winning. So this seems like a pretty easy pick for me. I'm going to go ahead and go with the favorites and pick Kansas City.
Ian?
I guess I'm just straying from the popular picks already this week. I'm pulling a Chris. But I like the Lions in an upset here. I mean, I don't like the Lions by any means as a football team, but I know they played well without Jamal Charles. I think it's going to falter this week. I think the Lions put something together, and Calvin Johnson scores me some points in fantasy. So I'm going with the Lions in an upset on the road.
That's a good pick. Death, taxes, and Matt Stafford throwing interceptions. Chiefs have a good defense. Stafford will throw picks. Chiefs will intercept those picks. They're doing enough to get wins. Alex Smith is the king of checkdowns. I think Travis Kelce gets in the end zone a couple times. I like the Chiefs at home in this one. Buccaneers on the road taking on the Falcons in Atlanta in the Dome. Chris, who do you have in this one?
Well, the Falcons won a really ugly one last week, and the Buccaneers lost a really ugly one last week, which would have actually, interestingly enough, given us all a win if only Tampa Bay would not have given up a last-minute touchdown to lose by 1 point. We could all be winners, and we would all have been happy. But, of course, they didn't. Washington won the game. I'm very bitter right now towards the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that's not the reason I'm picking the Falcons. The Bucs are bad, and the Falcons are just too dangerous at home, so I'm going Atlanta.
Ian?
Yeah, I like the Falcons. I just don't think Tampa Bay can play on their level. Julio Jones is a beast. They've played well this season. They've had a couple hiccups here and there, but I like the Falcons at home.
I also like the Falcons at home. They got too many weapons. Matt Ryan looks good. Buccaneers, that's a deflating loss to come and try to get ready for next week, so I'm taking the Falcons in this one. Next game, we got the Cardinals, the Bird Gang, on the road, taking on your Brownies in Cleveland. Ian, who do you have in this one?
This is my Super Bowl. For anybody that knows me, you know my NFC team's the Cardinals. So this is my Super Bowl. This is what I've been waiting for all season because realistically, I know the Browns aren't going to be there at the end in February, but the Cardinals still have a shot. My beloved Brown brethren, I'm not giving up on you, but I got to go with the smart pick and go with the Cardinals on the road.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree with Ian. I know the Browns are going to sneak a few wins in there. They always do. They're going to get their 4 or 5 wins. So they got a couple more, 3 or 4 more wins coming this year, and you never know when they're going to happen. But I'm going to go with the smart and safe pick as well, and say that Carson Palmer, who is very familiar with throwing some touchdowns up there in the pound, gets a few more. I'm going Cardinals.
Yeah, this is such a prototypical Browns game for me. Coming off a bad loss, they've been close in a lot of games. I could see them upsetting the Cardinals at home. However, I'm not going to pick that. I'm taking the Cardinals on the road. They got too many weapons. That offense is really good. Their defense is great. Special teams is great. So I'm taking the Cardinals in this one. They're they're top 5 teams in the NFC. So I'm taking the Cardinals. Next game, we got the 49ers on the road taking on the Rams. Chris, who do you have in this one?
I see 2 different teams in 2 different directions. I keep waiting for the 49ers and Colin Kaepernick to finally snap out of the funk and get it together. I got burned up against the Seahawks this past Thursday. Won't let it happen again. I see St. Louis is sort of a team that's found their identity. They want to run the ball, they want to control the clock, and they want to stop you from doing the same thing. So I'm going to go with the Rams at home. I think this is kind of an easy pick.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm with Chris. I think the Rams have an identity, and just like he said, they control the game by controlling the clock on the ground, and their strong defense keeps the opposing offense in front of them, and it leads to several 3 and outs and turnovers as well. So I'm going with the Rams.
Yeah, this game would be fun for me to watch just to see Jim Tomsula's face, the head coach of the 49ers. He always looks like he's pondering life. He's always got a huge dip in and just staring at the sun. He always looks like he's so confused, doesn't know what's going on. They stink. 49ers stink. Kaepernick stinks. That whole team stinks. I still am bitter at the 49ers for upsetting the Bengals in the Super Bowl. So I'm taking the Rams. I think the Rams have one of the best defenses in the league. I played them in fantasy last week, Ian, and thankfully they went up against the Browns and had a couple turnovers. So I'm taking the Rams in this one. The next game, we got the New York Football Giants on the road taking on the Saints in the Dome. Chris, who do you have in this one?
This was one of the tougher ones, I think, on the schedule this week. The Saints seem to be coming together. They shocked the world last week against the Colts, going up big, and they made them look like fools on the road. It was really impressive. I think their offense is clicking. Sean Payton, who at one point was on the hot seat, has kind of turned that ship around in New Orleans. I do like the Saints in this one over Eli and the gang. So give me the New Orleans Saints.
Ian?
Going the exact opposite. I think the Giants are a good football team. I think they're going to be able to grind this out on the road. I think it will be close, but I'm taking the Giants on the road.
Yeah, last week, if you watched the show, you guys may remember, I said the toughest game on the card for me was the Saints on the road against the Colts. I said the Saints, I could see them going into Indy and absolutely dominating that game. I, however, took the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, I won't make that mistake again. I'm taking the Saints at home in this one. They're starting to gel. They're starting to look good. The NFC East is so weak to me. I'm taking the Saints in this one. I like Drew Brees and the Saints. Next game, we got the Vikings on the road taking on the Chicago Bears. Chris, who do you have in this one?
Well, when I zig with the Vikings, they zag. They've just been one of those teams that's somewhere in the middle. They're not a good team. They're not a bad team. The Bears haven't really found their identity yet. I think Minnesota finally has. I think Bridgewater is doing a good job there just controlling the ball. I know he had a bad game with some turnovers earlier in the year, but I feel like they have some momentum going their way, and they got the win last week. Bears, on the other hand, still searching for their identity. Jay Cutler, I know, has had his ups and downs, but I don't see them winning this one. I'm going with Minnesota.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm going Minnesota on this one on the road. They're just a better team on paper, on the field, everything about them. Zimmer's done a great job up there in Minnesota. I got the Vikings.
Yeah, Zimmer was my pick of the year, or my head coach prediction for head coach of the year before the season started. I think this one's simple. It's a good defense in the Vikings versus a bad defense in the Bears. I'm taking the Vikings in this one. Next game, we got the Chargers taking on the Ravens in Baltimore. Chris, who do you have in this one?
Well, 3 years ago, this would have been an AFC championship matchup. And this is a tale of two teams who have just completely fallen off the map. They're both struggling mightily. They both have this false hope that maybe there's a chance they can squeak in and make themselves get on a roll into the playoffs. I think Baltimore's spirit is completely broken. I still see Phillip Rivers trying to fight out games, but Joe Flacco just looks like a homeless man wandering in the streets. I want to go against everything that tells me the Ravens will lose. I'm going to go ahead and pick Baltimore, however, on Sunday at home against the Chargers. Two bad teams. It's a tough call, but I'm giving the edge to the home team.
Ian?
Yeah, the Ravens showed me a lot of grit on Monday Night Football against the Cardinals. I watched that game really closely with having my stake in it with the Cardinals, but that the Ravens played well against them, and that's a tough place to go, especially out in Arizona, and pull off. They were driving to tie the game at the end. So I'm going Ravens over the Chargers in a close one, and solely because the Ravens are playing at home.
I agree with you guys. I don't think the Ravens got hosed on a couple calls in that game. If you watch that, especially on that last drive. So Chargers coming to the East Coast. Let's flip that script. They're coming over here, and I don't think the Ravens are as bad as their record is. So I'm taking the Ravens in this one as well. Next game, we got the Titans on the road taking on the red-hot Houston Texans. No, I'm just kidding. The Houston Texans. Chris, who do you have in this one?
Excuse me, sorry. I just vomited a little bit in my mouth. Can I pick pass? I can't believe this is even a game that's going to be on TV that people are going to have to be forced to watch. I actually said that I would never pick the Texans and then I would never pick the Titans. So this is the moment where the stars align and something has to be made. I'm going to go ahead and go with Houston, simply because I don't know. There's no logical explanation. I think they're the lesser of two bad teams. I'll put it that way. They at least have a semblance of an offense and a quarterback who started more than 1 year. So give me the slightly more experienced Texans in this one over the Titans.
Ian?
Yeah, in this high school game of the week, I've got the Titans winning on the road. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be miserable. I think it's going to be all around bad football. It's going to be a JV game that's played on Saturdays at a crappy high school field. So I'm taking the Titans.
Let's travel back to 2011. The Bengals sat in their war room on draft day. Mike Brown wanted Ryan Mallett terribly. Jay Gruden and Marvin Lewis thankfully talked him out of it, and they ended up drafting Andy Dalton. Mallett has been a cancer on this team. He's terrible. He's a baby. Now that he's gone, I like the Texans. I think things are going to start to turn for them. They're not good. Losing Arian Foster obviously is terrible for them, but Alfred Lewis showed in the past that he can fill in for him. The Texans, they're bad. Titans, they're bad. I don't know if they have Mariota or not this week, but I'm taking the Texans at home simply because they're the home team. Next game, we have the Jets, 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 on the road taking on the Oakland Raiders in the Black Hole. Chris, who do you have in this one?
I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, Jared, and this was probably the toughest game on the dock for me, aside from the Atlanta game. But I'm going to go ahead and go with the Jets on the road, just because I feel like they have some momentum. Oakland put it to San Diego. They may be riding a little bit high on this one. I'm still not convinced on Oakland's defense. I think they have a great passing game. I think Latavius Murray is a monster, but I'm not sold on that defensive front, especially the front four. So I think the Jets go a little crazy here and run the ball and control the clock. I'm going to go with New York.
Ian?
I'm taking the Raiders solely because it's an East Coast team going out to the West Coast, and it's going to be tough for them to, I think, steal one out there in the black hole. But I like the Raiders in this one, but I think it's going to be close.
I personally think the Raiders have a good team, but I do believe Amari Cooper has a one-way ticket to Revis Island this week. I think that the Jets have some pretty good weapons on offense, and they're actually moving the ball. They look pretty good. Their run defense is stout. We've talked about their defense in the past. I'm taking the Jets in this one. I don't know. I just got a feeling on that one. Next game, we got the Seattle Seahawks on the road taking on the Cowboys. Chris, who do you have in this one?
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Cowboys stay in it late and even squeak a win out of this. It's the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised to see any of these games flip the other way, to be honest with you. However, I think Seattle has found their beast, Marshawn Lynch. He's finally doing what he's supposed to do. He and Shaw have created a great run game on the ground. Pete Carroll is doing his thing. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks on the road. It's typically not a great road team, but Dallas isn't the same Dallas. I'm going to go with Seattle.
Ian?
Yeah, I agree. The Cowboys are not the same Cowboys that we're accustomed to seeing. You know what? I'm not real high on the Seahawks. I think their swagger and everything is carried over from the past 2 seasons, and I just don't buy into they're as complete as they have been the last couple of years. I think the Cam Chancellor holding out situation, I think that's killed their momentum on defense. I think he's an impact player, but I think it's, you obviously see the holes in the defense because he was never there for practice. I think if the Seahawks want to get back on track, they're going to have to start winning these road games. I'm taking them this week, but I could, like Chris said, Chris said earlier, I could see the script being flipped in any of these games, and I could especially see the Cowboys winning here, but I'm taking the Seahawks.
I don't think this one's close. I think you guys are overthinking it. The Cowboys, the way you beat the Seahawks, unless you have tons of weapons on offense, which the Cowboys don't, you got to run the ball, and they're not running the ball well. Their offensive line has not been as good as advertised, and I think the Seahawks are starting to click. They're starting to run Marshawn. Their defense is actually starting to play a little better. They just have too many weapons for me. I'm taking the Seahawks in this one. Next game, Sunday Night Football. The undefeated Green Bay Packers will travel to Denver, Mile High Stadium, to take on the undefeated Denver Broncos. So we will have one of the undefeateds fall. Chris, who do you have in this one?
By far the game of the week. Very excited to see this game, especially in prime time after all the complete stinkfest games that we've talked about and half-assed analyzed in the past. I think that this is actually a game that's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to talk about when it's over, and I think it's going to be one of those Joe Montana versus Steve Young matchups for the ages. I do see Green Bay going in and getting the W just because they have one of the best run defenses in football, and Denver likes to run the ball. The elevation is going to be tough, but I don't think they give Peyton Manning enough time. Also, Manning, I think, is finally starting to wear down. This may be his last go-around. I know he's signed through next year, but it's good to see one of the undefeateds fall. And as a Bengals fan, I'd be especially happy to see those Broncos fall. Give me the Pack.
E?
Yeah, definitely a great game on the slate for this week. If I can't see that Titans-Texans game, I definitely want to see this one. When I first looked at this game, I circled Packers. I said, no doubt. But Peyton always elevates his game when they're playing somebody that's good. I think Peyton has slowed down this year. It's obvious by his touchdown to interception ratio. He has been lacking in that department. Both teams coming off byes. I think it's going to be a slugfest, but I do like the Packers on the road, just like Chris. I think at the end of the day, the Packers are a better team. but I think it's going to come down to the end.
Yeah, this is as much as the offenses are going to get praised in this one. This is a battle of defense. The Packers are giving up the fewest points in the NFL. Their defense actually looks really good this year, and Denver's got the #1 ranked defense in the NFL. So, Peyton Manning has not done anything for me this year, and they've solely relied on that defense to win them games. However, what that defense is going to run into is Aaron Rodgers doesn't make mistakes a lot. I like the Packers in this one. I think the Green Bay's defense will get to Peyton. I think they're going to hit him and rough him up, and I think he's going to turn the ball over. So I think Green Bay wins this one. As Chris said, I'm rooting for the Packers big time in this one because it helps out the Bengals' cause in the long run. So give me the Packers on this one. Last game of the week, Monday Night Football. The Colts will travel to Carolina to take on the undefeated Panthers. Chris, who do you have in this one?
I think in the short answer, I think it's Carolina. I think the Panthers stay undefeated. Jonathan Stewart is turning into a man possessed. He just somehow seems to always get it done. The Colts are demoralized. They're just not the same Colts. However, I still think they come out of that AFC South as the division champ just because it's the weakest division in football by far. They may win that division at 7-9 somehow, but Carolina gets the job done on Monday night.
Ian?
Yeah, Carolina's clicking on all cylinders. I think they'll roll through this week. I got the Panthers winning at home, staying undefeated.
Yeah, Colts stink, Luck stinks, AFC South stinks. The Colts are going to lose this game, and they're still going to wake up in first place on Tuesday. So give me the Panthers in this one. They stay undefeated. That's an easy pick for me. But that's it. That's our picks. Let's go ahead real quick. We'll give you our bold predictions for this upcoming weekend. This is the final thing of the show. Real quick, Chris, bold prediction for this upcoming weekend of sports.
Okay, after 4 very rough weeks on my NFL pick'ems, my bold prediction is that I will not finish in last place this week. I know I'm going way out there. I'm on some kind of a losing streak here. I'm feeling some good vibes on this one.
That is very bold. Ian, what's your bold pick?
I got 2 of them. Temple will host Notre Dame Saturday night in the game of the week on ABC. I think Temple stays undefeated against Notre Dame. They pull off the upset. My other one, at the end of next week, there's going to be one team left in the AFC that's undefeated, and it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals.
I love them both.
I love that, Ian. I love that. We had one final question. I wanted to tie it into my bold prediction. James Bishop had a second question. He said, what are your thoughts and predictions for the World Series? My bold prediction is by this time next week, the New York Mets will be the World Series champions. If you guys want to give your World Series picks, go ahead real quick.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you on that. I think the Royals squeak a game or two, but I saw this series, and I just think the Mets' rotation is just way too young, way too good, and way too dangerous. I think the Mets win it in 5, and I'm also going to tack on a bold prediction B that when the games go out to New York for Game 3, we hear the Cueto chant when Johnny takes the mound for the Royals in Game 3 from the Mets.
Ian, your World Series prediction.
Yeah, this was going to be my bold prediction tonight, but Jared, you're the man. You took it from me. I do like the Mets, but I like them in 5. I think they'll win 1 in Kansas City, and I think they'll win all 3 in New York.
Give me the Mets in 6. Thank you guys to everyone who's sending questions. You guys are awesome. We really appreciate it. Like our Facebook page, Ohio Sports Radio on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Ohio Sports Radio. Tweet at us. We're always on there. Check out our website, ohsportsradio.com. We're updating it daily. Thank you to everyone who continues to support us. We're already through 6 episodes of the Ohio Sports Radio Show. It's been awesome. Can't wait to talk to you guys next week on episode 7. And Who Day, Ian? Who Day?
We bark together.
Thank you, guys.
Who Day?